Mixed martial arts has seen its fair share of absolutely insane moments in the cage, but it sounds like the backstage area can be pretty damn wild as well.
Mike Goldberg just ran through the back here with no shirt on.
Really?
Yeah, that was weird.
Today we're counting down the weirdest, the craziest, and the most unbelievable things to take place on the opposite side of the curtain. These 10 strange and incredible incidents mark the rare occurrence when what was happening in the back was far more interesting than what was happening in the arena. I'm Tommy from MMA On Point, and these are the 10 most insane backstage moments in MMA history. Number 10. Mark Coleman's meltdown. Losing is really hard. If I lose a close race in Mario Kart, I'm putting holes in drywall. But to lose on a massive stage, say Saitama Super Arena in front of 42,000 fans, in the biggest fight of your entire life, the rage and the pain that would cause is inconceivable. Except for the fact that we know exactly what such a moment would look like thanks to the documentary film crews backstage at Pride Total Elimination 2004. Mark Coleman was the 2000 Openweight Grand Prix winner, and since then had only lost to Big Nog. In the first round of the 2004 Heavyweight GP, Coleman would be matched with the greatest heavyweight in the world, the Pride champion Fedor Emelianenko. And truth be told, he was doing pretty well to start, having taken the last Emperor's back and scoring a second takedown after. Unfortunately, about 2 minutes in, Fedor caught the hammer with a nasty belly down armbar, and that was that. Mark was unhappy to say the least. Now, Coleman is certainly known to at times be a bit quick to anger, but in such a situation, it was completely understandable. To his credit, he was very cordial with Fedor afterwards. Number 9. Jason Miller gets fired after a mysterious backstage incident. Jason Mayhem Miller's return to the UFC in 2011 was in large part due to his super popular MTV show Bully Beatdown, but Dana White never seemed too keen on the whole wild man gimmick. After coaching a season of Tough, Miller was slaughtered by Michael Bisping at the finale, and that May was set to take on CB Dollaway at UFC 146 in the sophomore effort of his sophomore effort in the promotion. Unfortunately, a knee injury mid-fight would lead to a frustrating decision loss, and it's at this point that something happened backstage, at least in some versions of this story. At the post-fight media scrum, Dana White cryptically and suddenly announced,
Something happened here backstage after Mayhem's done,
leaving out any real detail about the incident that caused his departure. Mayhem told Ariel Helwani that Monday on the MMA Hour that the incident happened before his fight and that he got into it with Burt Watson over a gas mask and a paper bag he wanted to wear to the cage.
Burt suddenly like started yelling about my mask. You know, right as I'm walking out to fight, like, you know what I mean? I'm trying to get focused there, and instead I'm arguing about a paper bag.
However, his teammate Mark Munoz would later tell media that after the fight, Miller got into it with someone backstage. The rumored after-fight altercation was that Miller went to a cash bar that was set up in the back and requested a free drink. When he didn't get it, he and the bartender had words. Whatever the hell happened, Miller was cut and retired for the first time that Monday after whatever went down went down. Number 8. Hani Jason murders a wall. With all due respect to Mark Coleman's backstage meltdown, Hani Jason's makes the hammers look like a reasonable response to a loss. It was UFC Fight Night 32 in Brazil, and Tough Brazil winner Hani Jason was getting his first big-name opponent in Jeremy Stevens after going on a 4-fight winning streak. Unfortunately, the fight would last 40 seconds and end with Jason getting head kick KO'd. To lose at home like that, and especially in such a quick and devastating fashion, the first KO loss of his career, it's understandable that he would be upset. But there's taking a loss hard, and then there's this. I'm not sure if you noticed the cartoonishly large hole Jason just put in that wall, but his namesake would be proud. In addition to terrifying anyone in the UFC's makeup room, Hani apparently also punched himself in the face twice. Both acts of backstage frustration would require stitches to fix up. 20 to 30 of them, in fact. Jason, who had already been medically suspended for 180 days, got a 30-day suspension on top of it from the Brazilian Commission, a small gesture that basically said, chill, bro. Number 7. Nate Diaz throws down with Jason Guida. UFC 199 was a wild night. Bisping won the title, the Diaz-McGregor rematch was made official, Brock Lesnar announced his return, Ariel Helwani got banned for life, more on that in a bit. Something that was apparently lost in all this awesomeness, though, was a legendary Diaz brothers tale. Now, of course, Nick famously duked it out with Joe Riggs at a hospital after their fight at UFC 57, but on this night, it was Nate who found himself in the wrong place at the wrong time. Clay Guida had just been KO'd on the prelims by Brian Ortega, and brother Jason, who was in his corner, corner was not happy about it. Team Alpha Male's Justin Buchholz told the story on a podcast.
Then fucking Jason and Nate got into it. I don't know what happened, but Jason bull rushes Nate and like tries to just put him against the wall. Nate's got him in a clinch, and I'm standing in the middle. I'm like, no!
After the Elder Guida apparently smashed a stool to bits backstage, the crew was heading down a hallway when Diaz emerged from a bathroom, prompting a concussed Clay to talk some shit. Sure, why not? As you can imagine, Nate wasn't too fond of this, and his response aggroed brother Jason, who then went on the attack. The two allegedly went at it for a solid 30 seconds or so before an army of UFC staff broke everything up and all parties went their separate ways. Just another day in the life of a Diaz brother. Number 6. GSP's stolen belt. The ending of UFC 167 was a whirlwind of confusion and anger. After a razor-close fight between George St-Pierre and Johnny Hendricks, the judges gave the fight to the champion, who then gave a somewhat confusing and cryptic temporary farewell speech to Joe Rogan, and from there, according to Dana White,
George stepped out of the octagon, went straight to an ambulance and straight to the hospital.
White then proceeded to go scorched earth on the judges, Nevada, and George's plan to walk away at the post-fight presser. Then, to the surprise of everyone, about 25 minutes into the press conference, in strolls GSP. Weird. After answering questions, or I should say, answering the questions Dana didn't answer for him, the presser ended, and St-Pierre would in fact take that break and vacate the title. But in the months after 167, GSP made some pretty wild claims about what happened backstage. The first came at a press conference in Quebec a month later. Speaking in French and translated to English, GSP said UFC PR staff told him he was not allowed to go to the press conference. St-Pierre even claimed everyone turned white when he arrived. As for that ambulance he hopped in right after he left the cage, the champ said he was completely fine, and 2 days later he was playing volleyball. After those comments, White would try to correct the record. When unprompted after UFC on Fox 9, Dana chalked up what GSP said to a bad translation and confusion by his PR staff and the doctors backstage.
And I'm sure when he told the story in French and then it got translated into English, you know, there was a little lost in translation.
A few weeks later, GSP would make yet another claim on the French-Canadian show Infoman that while he was showering post-fight, someone from the UFC took his belt and he never got it back. Press conference footage does in fact show GSP beltless until someone brings it to the stage, and when he gets up, he leaves without it. Whatever happened after UFC 167, it was definitely worthy of our list. Number 5. Leon Edwards gets a three-piece. This has to be one of the few legendary backstage moments to, in part, launch someone's career into superstardom. After stealing Darren Till's soul with a left in the main event of Fight Night London, Jorge Masvidal was enjoying some of that sweet ESPN interview time with Laura Sanko when fellow welterweight contender and co-main event winner Leon Edwards decided to stroll by and put in an RSVP for a July throwdown with Street Jesus. Masvidal had different thoughts on when the fight should occur. The dust-up left Edwards with a cut over his eye, and immediately the altercation went viral. This was just the first act of this masterpiece of backstage shenanigans, though. In an all-time classic interview with Brett Okamoto later that night, Gamebred laid this little gem on us regarding the post-fight incident.
You are what you are, bro. You're just a loser in life, man. You're not gonna get a hit off me, you know? So I had to give him the three-piece with the soda, and then just glide out of there, you know?
Three-piece with the soda quickly became everyone's favorite thing, and the resurrection had begun. Masvidal's star was on the rise, but his unique charisma and propensity for handing out value meals was absolutely nothing new, as is evident from this interview Jorge gave on the MMA Hour 3 years prior.
I'm known I got one of the best sucker punches in the business, you know?
Sucker punches?
Sucker punches.
That's not a good thing to be known for.
Hell yeah, it is in the street, it is. You learn to have like a really good sucker punch and a really good 50-yard dash.
Long live Gamebred. Number 4. Ariel Helwani gets banned for life. After Nate Diaz and Jason Guida apparently wrecked the place, Ariel Helwani was hanging out in the media room backstage and putting out some fire tweets. He broke the news on the Diaz-McGregor rematch, and then he got the scoop on Brock Lesnar returning at UFC 200, something the UFC would officially announce later on the broadcast. As it turns out, Zuffa wasn't too happy that the nose had stolen their thunder on the announcement, and it caused some serious infighting amongst the execs about who leaked the info. So after a meeting with DFW himself, Ariel, along with his fellow MMA fighting crew crew of Esther Lynn and Casey Leydon were escorted out of the arena and banned for life. According to Helwani, Dana told him, "You're too negative, go to Bellator." Now, trouble had been brewing in Paradise for some time. Ariel was fired from Fox that spring per the UFC's request, and it sounds like the Lesnar drama was just the last incident in a long line of them between the two parties. That Monday, Helwani did a major sports media tour and took to the MMA Hour to vent and spill the beans for 2 full hours, getting pretty emotional at the end.
I'm not going anywhere. It's going to take a lot more to get rid of me.
Later that same day, the UFC would release a statement saying the lifetime ban, which only lasted all of 2 days, was now lifted, but they still felt Helwani was in the wrong. Things cooled down, kinda. White made fun of Ariel on the first ever episode of the UFC Undisputed podcast, and the promotion had Helwani removed from the Maymac press tour. I don't think they're gonna be sending each other Christmas cards.
Who the fuck is Ariel Helwani?
Number 3, Kevin Randleman KOs himself. Kevin Randleman has the unfortunate distinction of being the only fighter in UFC history to defeat himself backstage prior to a title fight. At UFC 24, First Defense, as in the first defense of Randleman's heavyweight title, which didn't end up happening, the monster was preparing to take it to Pedro Hizzo in the main event when he jumped up into the air, slipped, fell, and smashed his head into the floor, which unfortunately wasn't made of marshmallows and rainbows, but concrete. If you've ever seen Kevin jump, it's a wonder he didn't slam his head into the ceiling. The champ also apparently jacked his shoulder up on the way down and threw up in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. That's never a good sign. After determining he was concussed,
which is super bad for you. Super bad.
the fight was of course canceled. Not that they bothered to tell the audience. After the promotion ran out of fights for everyone to watch, the doctor was interviewed informing the viewers of the mishap. This moment has sadly been deleted from Fight Pass. The show was such a bust, DirecTV wouldn't even let people rent a replay. 2 pay-per-views later, Randleman would keep his feet under him and defeat Hizzo via unanimous decision at UFC 26. Number 2, the Crazy Horse tape. Charles Bennett, better known as Crazy Horse, is as wild a dude as you're gonna find in mixed martial arts, and that's really saying something. He's known for his insane antics both inside and outside the ring, but his most well-known incident is by far what happened backstage at Pride Shockwave 2005. It was a big night for Shootobox team, as Vanderlei Silva was set to defend his middleweight title against Ricardo Arona, who had defeated him earlier that year in a non-title fight. Bennett had fought on the card earlier, and the two parties found themselves in the same backstage area, while Vandy was warming up. After Bennett and Cristiano Marcelo had some words, a quick fight broke out that ended with Marcelo putting Crazy Horse to sleep with a triangle choke. The Shootobox team would post this legendary video on their website, but this is not where the story ends. Bennett claims that right after the cameras cut, he got up and KO'd Vanderlei Silva with a single punch and then ran out of the arena. He would maintain this story for years, and over time other fighters have corroborated the story, although it's still unclear if it actually happened. My guess is probably not. Even so, Bennett would taunt Vandy about it before his bout at the Ryzen World GP in 2016. This led to a less exciting but equally comical backstage altercation between the two. May this feud never be resolved. Number 1, Conor McGregor fights a bus. Come on now, you knew this had to top the list. This notorious backstage incident has a stupid and long history, including another backstage incident. The trouble started when Khabib Nurmagomedov called Conor McGregor a chicken in his post-fight interview at UFC 205. Now for you and I, being called a chicken is about as harsh as being called a toucan. But for Marty McFly and apparently all of Russia, it's one of the worst insults you can possibly say. I'm not even kidding. It's so offensive to be called a rooster in Russia that it's rarely used by anyone as it's deemed too harsh. It's so dark, in fact, I can't even repeat it on YouTube. Because of the severe nature of the insult, McGregor's Russian teammate Artem Lobov was asked about Khabib's comments in a Russian language interview. Artem didn't outright call Khabib a chicken, but simply implied that Nurmagomedov regularly pulls out of fights and Conor does not, so who is the chicken? He basically called him a chicken. Smash cut to 2 years later. That's right, 2 whole years. It's the week of UFC 223. Lobov and Khabib are both on the card, and the Eagle confronts the Russian Hammer in the Fighters Hotel. The half slap heard around the world sparked McGregor to send a text to Lobov that read, "I'm on my way." And he was, with about 19 other dudes. Conor, Artem, and company planned to storm the next day's media event, but they showed up late, and the fighters were already leaving for the hotel in buses, so instead they attacked those. Lots of fallout from this one. Artem was pulled from the card, Mike Chiesa got cut and was unable to fight, Ray Borg got glass in his eye and was forced out, Rose Namajunas was traumatized, and Conor was arrested and pled no contest to disorderly conduct. Oh, and in part it led to the massive brawl after UFC 229. All because someone was called chicken. But really though, not a chicken. Just look it up. Thanks for watching. Please give us a like and subscribe. We've got 3 new videos or more for you every single week. Let us know what you thought of the video in the comments below. Huge shout out to Max Randall for editing this video together. Follow him on Twitter at Max_Randall. Follow On Point MMA on Twitter, and have yourself a wonderful day.